Hey, Poke.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that 30 seconds worth of time. You should probably do your dance.
I don't know. I'm just not feeling very dancey this week.
Shut up and do the dance.
Shut up and dance with me.
That was so bad. You are so white.
I mean, I don't know that. How do you don't know me? You don't know me.
Just put yourself on mute. Now let's get the show on the road.
You put yourself on mute.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Knights of Deathbridge proudly brings to you Warcraft Nightly News with your hosts, Derek Scott and Poke Soul. Good evening and welcome to Warcraft Nightly News. We're the only podcast that still is trying to bring sexy back. I am your host, Derek Scott. With me is the man, the myth, the legend, Pokebear. And on this week's episode, we're actually we've got our first guest ever, and his name is Nobunaga. I know, right? He's come out of retirement. The guy hasn't been heard of for like ever and a day, it seems like. And he's back. And he's here with us tonight. On this week's show, we are going to tackle the return to Karazhan, the developments that all transpired from Gamescom, and if there's time, we're going to be talking about the Warforged gear dropping in invasions, and ultimately, to start the show off, we're going to be reliving a little bit of the WoWradio days. So Nobu, I know that you're not on mute. Mm-hmm. Why don't you say hi?
Hi. No, and you just...
Did you seriously steal that from Poke from last week?
Maybe.
Yeah, freaking
dun, dun.
You're a hack.
And I've always been a hack, and I've always will be a hack.
Alrighty. Well, so I'm going to do a little bit of a short intro about you, and then I'm gonna turn the show over to you to kind of talk about yourself, because of the fact that, well, your list of credentials is like ridiculously long. I know you can't see me, but you've got a rap sheet that is like so huge. It's amazing. So for those people that aren't aware of what really kind of got everything all started podcast wise, was WoWradio. I'm not even gonna, there's just no two different ways about it. WoWradio started this entire whole idea of doing WoW podcasts, in the sort of format that we do it today. And that is a huge reason why, for our very first community spotlight, I've got you. Because outright, I remember the very first time that you and me were in a raid together. I picked you up as a pug.
A terrible pug.
Yes, a horrible, brutal pug. And you took yourself off mute and you said hello. And the first thing that I said was, holy crap, that voice. Mm-hmm. And you were trying very hard not to let on as to who you were. And we got a couple of extra pulls in there and the whole 9 yards. But I spent so much time listening to WoWradio that's where I knew your voice from. I found out other things that we have something else in common, which is the fact that we're Canadian, which Poke makes you the outcast of this particular week.
Hey!
This will be our 80th episode together, Poke. And for most of our run, I have been the minority. And this week, I'm the majority.
There's been two of us. How are you the minority?
Well, there was also Janelle, who was who
I
was
know
American.
I know intellectually you'll always be the minority, but
I saw that coming. I should have just known that you were going to take that shot. Totally should have known it. All right, Nobu, I'm throwing this to you. Okay, you go ahead. You tout your own, and then we'll make fun of you for it.
Sounds good. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what most people do anyway.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. My name is Nobunaga online, and by and large, I've been a part of the WoW community since it, I guess, went quote-unquote mainstream back in 2005, when, I guess, my face and name and voice first ended up hitting, I guess, popular consciousness. I don't even know what you want to call it.
Popular consciousness, good word.
Sure, why not? Popular awareness.
No, we're going to go with the consciousness thing here.
It's the internet hive mind. I mean, really, it just it doesn't matter.
One of us.
Yes, Dean. Cargo bay doors, Bob. Anyway. Trying to prevent the massive sidetracks which many of the podcasting productions I've been involved with have become famous for. Back in the day, I was just your stereotypical passionate lore enthusiast who also liked cosplay and pretty much everything about Warcraft and StarCraft and Diablo and all that sort of thing. So, in anticipation of BlizzCon 2005, God, it's been too long.
Holy crap! Yeah, no kidding, eh?
I got together with a friend of mine from in WoW, and we were going to make a couple's costume, a warlock and a succubus, and we were going to go. We were going to have a blast. And in the lead up, as I was sort of making the costume, I was listening to Athelis. And Athelis was the originator, the man who began WCRadio or WoWradio. And I was a big fan. And so I listened, and there was an IRC channel. God, this seems like such archaic technology these days, even though, yes, I know IRC, whatever. Not same. Anyway,
back then to podcast, you had to walk uphill in 3 feet of snow, and then to do your outro, you had to walk through 3 feet of snow uphill still.
Yeah, Lord knows how we all did it back then. But so I had been hanging out since I was, kind of a fan. I was hanging out in the IRC chat, and I was talking about and posting pictures of the progress on this costume that I was making. And the first iteration had molded baked clay for the shoulders, and it was horrendous, and it broke on the way to the con. It was horrible. Anyway, so and I was talking to them, and Athelis and Moirin, who was a woman that worked on the show, she's still somewhat active online. We were talking about, at BlizzCon, you guys are going to be there, because they were going to try and live stream from BlizzCon, and it was, it didn't, it kind of worked, but it really didn't work. Anyway, there was more people than just Athelis involved, but the idea was tossed around that, hey, maybe I could come on, do like a story about the costume and the cosplay, because no one really knew how big this was going to be. And so I met them there. It ended up that my friend had to back out from going to BlizzCon. Long story. But so I went alone, and so began my odyssey of the Dreadmist Man, the Pork Lock, whatever folks want to call it these days.
I think I'm going to actually start calling it a pork lock again. I totally forgot that phrase.
I know, right? Most folks, but really, we could just now call it a skin for Roadhog. I mean,
yeah.
really.
Yeah, really, you could.
really, really could. If I hadn't dropped a lot of that weight, I obviously could go as Roadhog to BlizzCon this year. Anyway, look, getting past that.
I know where the show took a weird turn.
Yes, like I said, if I'm involved, the show's going to take a weird turn. Anyway, met up with them, chatted with them, and in the end, it was like, yeah, well, why don't we have you on? You talk about the con, the costume, that sort of thing, because the first WC Radio BlizzCon didn't go 100%. It was okay, but I mean, they had a tiny little booth wrapped in garbage bags that was behind the stage that, no one actually went to. It was for just to them to talk into the microphones, and it was loud, it was bad, but it was the beginning. So after the con, and my face and my quote-unquote name got around front page of World of Warcraft site and all that kind of thing, I got more and more involved with WC Radio, and it just so happened that they were looking for people as well to help with some new shows that they were doing, like a lore-based show. And of course I gravitated towards that. And Moirin was great, and Strixus and Leto and all those guys, legends of WoW podcasting from back in the day. And it was just a great time. And I started broadcasting almost by accident. And
that sounds like us, Poke.
Yeah. WC Radio had meetings back in the day, and they were over Ventrilo. And Ventrilo, there's another piece of software I hadn't been around much. So we used to have, weekly meetings. And at this particular one, Moirin said, "Oh no, I'm not going to be here to do the live show for the lore show. Someone will have to fill in." And so Athelis and Slanik and Total Biscuit were there, and I think Athelis was like, "Okay, we're going to need someone to fill in for Moirin's show." And then several breaths and heartbeats passed, and no one stepped up to do it. So I was like, "I'll do it." And they're like, "Okay, it's Nobu's going to do the show," and blah, 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 and boom, and they were on to the next piece of business. And so they realized, wait, I don't know how to stream. I don't know how to podcast. I don't have the software. I don't have the encoding. And back then, you had to use like Audacity and all these other programs to live stream your audio, because it was archaic. Back then, it wasn't like today. YouTube wasn't really around, and Twitch wasn't really around. Actually, Twitch was non-existent at the time, and YouTube was absolute infancy. So yeah, I fumbled through the first, and then began many years of, Ancients of Lore, Lore Keepers, Council of Six, The Art of Warcraft. You got to pause. There's a hyphen in there. Where I would read quotes from the depths of the art, Sun Tzu's Art of War, and basically show how these things are, in World of Warcraft, and how you can use the Art of War to be a better World of Warcraft player. That was the intention anyway. It was a silly, stupid premise, but basically that was what we were doing. We had, at the time, 24 hours of programming that we needed to fill. So basically we were just throwing anything at the wall and seeing what stuck. And like most of my shows, yeah, some of it was shit, and it stuck to the wall. And, hey, it all worked in the end. But anyway, years passed, many years, in fact, and a lot of behind-the-scenes things happened, and that's all best skipped over because it's just kids being kids.
Yeah, exactly. People grow, people change, things evolve, and unfortunately or fortunately, WoWradio is no longer around. It's very difficult to find a lot of old content from your heyday and stuff like that. I would imagine that you probably have like this like huge library of stuff that if I could spend an afternoon at your place, I would just go absolutely gaga in love with. But the fact of the matter is, you guys were honestly the ones that started all of this.
Yeah, and back then we hadn't a clue. Like, though we were kind of the first out of the gate, once we started, there was, of course, a lot of imitators that came along. But being the first out and the biggest, I guess, entity in the business, I mean, looking back on it, I think of how important we thought we were. And then I look back on it now and I realize we weren't really anything. We were just the egg from which, I guess, sort of the community would sort of bloom and hatch and spread from.
But I mean, that's a huge thing, though. Like, looking back on it now, it may seem insignificant, but really it started it all. Like, it was the Big Bang.
Yeah. And honestly, if it hadn't have been for you and you guys in WoWradio, we wouldn't be here. 30,000 years later, 97 BlizzCons down the road, and 289 facepalms later, we wouldn't be here. And if you guys didn't break this ground, because you guys were even around before the instance, and you guys kind of gave birth to the instance and to everything that they've done. And they took your guys' kind of format and retooled it, made it their own. We have belligerently stolen some of the stuff from you guys as well, including the format to this show, because as you keep saying, yeah, on other shows that I've done that we sidetrack and stuff like that. Well, we get sidetracked every single week. I mean, that's kind of what we do. We have made a name for ourselves by not staying on topic, possibly taking selfies of ourselves and stuff like that right on camera. But if it weren't for you guys, we wouldn't be here. And so, I don't know if anybody's ever said this to you, but thank you. Thank you for breaking this ground. Thank you for being for being one of the first out there, making it so that this is a legitimate forum for people to be able to talk about World of Warcraft and things to that nature. And I am absolutely honored to not only be able to call you a friend, but to have you as our very first guest ever. You're the granddaddy of the podcast, really, the WoW podcast. And that's something that you need to hang on your wall.
The many things.
No. Take all the rest of them down. I don't care if you got kids. I don't care if you're married. You take that crap down. You put up Granddaddy of WoW Podcasts. I'm gonna send you a card that's just gonna say it, and I expect that to go on your wall.
Well, maybe I'll put it in the office.
Okay, good.
Although I do want to break in here because at no point do I want to take credit, and of course you'll agree with this, that I am just one tiny part of a massive team.
Yes.
Whether, obviously Strixus, Leto, Total Biscuit, Slanik, Pride, I'm going to forget a million names, Gabby, everyone from WC Radio back in those days. I, of course, was just a small wallet floating through everything, kind of bolstering up what could be while providing, I guess, a unique perspective and voice when I could. So I definitely don't want anyone to think that I'm taking credit for anything, but I thank you for the kind words. And if you do send the card, I'll probably try and find some room for it.
It's okay. I actually am going to get paste and macaroni. right after the show. You're getting a cool card. I'm gonna totally do it. I think my kids have glitter. Poke, do you have glitter at your place? You're on mute, and yeah.
Oh, my stuff's lagging. Okay, I'm sure my kids have glitter around here. We can work out something like
cool.
We got some crafty stuff going on.
That's
all
right.
We could just make one the size of his wall.
No. That becomes big and gaudy. It becomes big and gaudy.
Sounds good to me. Like,
he's not old enough to have gaudy yet. Give him another year. All right.
One more year, just one.
just one more, one more year, and then you get the blue plate special back at the IHOP.
You did call him the granddaddy.
I know.
I know. Pointing it out, like,
I know.
If I was him, I probably wouldn't be very happy with you right now.
Actually, I'm kind of surprised he hasn't rage quit already. And I know what sort of a person he is. He watched us wipe umpteen bazillion times on Mythic Cormac, as I was solo tanking this when I shouldn't have been able to solo tank it, and he put up with it. So
and here I'm going, man. I'm in the frost. Why am I frost? I'm a blood tank main. Why am I relegated to frost? No!
Alrighty. Well, okay. We've got so much show to hit up here that I hate to cut this a little bit short. But game's gone. Holy crap on a stick! I was not expecting even a quarter of the info that we actually got. Wow. I was watching a interview with Ian Hazzikostas. And I gotta say it again. I want to interview this guy because he's my favorite guy at Blizzard. I've never met him, but I just think that he's telling it like it is. And he was on with Fat Boss, and they were talking back and forth. And another one of those quotes that just you can't avoid. So we weren't going to always tell everybody what was going to happen, but then we decided that we were going to, because we wanted to make sure that everybody knew that we had content, that we were not just going to forget about patch content. And words are words, so we decided to show you guys. And I laugh. I laugh hysterically because it was just over a year ago, the infamous Corey Stockton interview that said, "Hey, don't worry, this is the final raid patch, and we're done." That I snapped, and I went absolutely out of my mind. 7.1. This is the earliest that we've ever seen a new patch content already. Like, the game isn't even out. This is looking like it's coming in early 2017, but they're throwing it out right now, showing us videos of going back to, well, one of Poke's heydays, Karazhan. Now, Karazhan is going to be a 5-man dungeon with all of the bosses in it. It is a major dungeon, like a mega. This is
it's a ridiculous amount of bosses for a dungeon. That's insane.
What do you? 11 bosses?
I believe the final number was 9. Was the full 9 bosses?
Yeah, well, because I would assume they're not going to have the optional boss unless they do.
I don't completely know. I believe the number was 9, so I don't know which of the 2 bosses they were not going to have in there. But they are
Well, I would assume they're going to drop chests because it would be hard to do
with 5 men.
With 5, yeah. I mean, I guess you can solo it right now.
Yeah,
like I've heard. So I don't know. Chess was really cool too. So if they drop chess, that would be kind of
I'm okay if they drop the chess. I was not a big fan of it. I still can't solo it, and I don't have the patience to do it.
There were two optional dragons that you didn't have to do, so I would assume we're probably going to see one of those go bye-bye. So
chess and the option and one of the two dragons would make sense. But they're not going to do a Mythic Plus version of this. They're not doing a heroic version. It is going to be a Mythic Dungeon only with a weekly lockout. The reason why they're going to a weekly lockout is so that you don't have to do it all in one sitting. Because it is going to be the size of a raid, ultimately. But now instead of it being, like Hellfire or anything like that, where it makes sense to break it up into 2 nights.
Yeah, honestly, I had heard rumor of this, I guess about 3 weeks ago. I had read an article that kind of hinted at the fact that it was coming, and I will wholeheartedly say I expected them to split it. I expected it to be 2 dungeons, the bottom half and the upper half.
Yeah, so, I agree. I totally thought it was going to be 2, and they were going to have the Mythic Plus version, which for those people that aren't aware of what the Mythic Plus dungeons are, is it's what we have become accustomed to with the challenge modes. But you're going to get different keystones that are going to make the dungeons harder, very similar to Diablo and Greater Nephilim Rifts, which I know that Nobu, you were more than familiar with, as I was watching you earlier today running Greater Rifts. What do you think about going back to Karazhan? Is this a good idea, or is it kind of a little late?
I am all for going back to Karazhan. Largely because it opens up a lot of possibilities. Now, I kind of come at this from 2 ways: the raider and then the lore geek, the lore nerd. And the raider in me is like, yes, but I want to make sure that they do some, we'll call it sprucing up, like clean the place up. Don't just scale the mobs to a 5-man and put some walls up to prevent us from going to certain places and pat us on the butt and tell us it's good. No, like, change it up. Make it a new experience in a familiar setting, and that would be great. But, and it's a big giant but, the lore side, Karazhan has always been a strangely central feature in Warcraft's lore. I mean, it's Medivh's home. It's where, he stewed and corrupted and researched. He crafted his legacy in that tower, as well as Sargeras' corruption or Sargeras himself, whichever you want to call it.
Yeah, well, that's an entire show all on its own.
Yes, and and I mean, there's the mirror side of Karazhan, which is, quote, underneath or on top and spatially. It's weird. It's Karazhan.
Yeah. And
that's sort of the expression. It's Karazhan. Like, there's so much there. It's on a nexus of ley lines. It has, it's on a planar boundary. It's got a whole nother dimensional access to it that doesn't exist elsewhere in the world. There's all of these different things in lore about Karazhan that make it a phenomenal place to go. I just hope they actually do it and not just patch on the bum, send you in, scale mobs. There you go. There's your instance.
Okay. So that was awesome. I see. I'm kind of one of those people that I wouldn't be too terribly upset if they actually did just, kind of throw up a few walls, scale the mobs, and sent us in. Only because of the fact that the bulk of the players that we see today came in during Wrath of the Lich King and Cataclysm. And so they don't understand the whole majesty behind Karazhan. Hopefully they're going to have a lot of quests lead up into going into this dungeon to kind of help push that story through. But there's a lot of people that don't understand how freaking awesome and why this is such a central location here in World of Warcraft. I remember sitting there watching the movie, and there were people behind me, and they were talking, and I threw popcorn at them to get them to shut up, because they just wouldn't stop talking. Like, why are they at Karazhan? There's one, and I'm like, shut up. But they didn't know why. and after the movie, and I thought about it, I shouldn't have thrown popcorn at them. But they are right. And taking it now into 7.1, holy crap, going back here is kind of a major deal. And if they don't give it the right sort of lead up, like they did with the Zandalari dungeons, we're going to have other issues, because people don't understand that the Zandalari stuff actually was a major focal point around these dungeons. So now do we run that same sort of a risk again?
Well, it's the lore side of it. Who knows what they'll do with that, because they're really good at just tossing things out there. But the raid side of it is what worries me, because I feel like if they don't rework it, there's a lot of those boss fights that just aren't going to work with 5 people. That's one of the reasons I feel like at least one of the dragons is gone, because one of the dragons, the entire fight, you have to stand in beams and you have to rotate out who's standing in the beam. If you take away the rotation, it destroys the mechanic of the fight, and you can't rotate in and out with 5 people. So it makes me wonder, and that's just one of the many bosses. Almost every one of them, just thinking about it, I can say there's a reason this is not going to work with 5-man. So I feel like from a mechanic standpoint, they're going to have to rework how that fight works, how all of those fights work. So
yeah, you've got a very good point. I didn't actually think of that, because so many people can go in and solo it.
Yeah, because it's not current content. You can just go solo it now. But if it were current content, it'd be utterly impossible for 5 people to do those things and make it work. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. I never thought of that. Okay. Another thing that they announced that's coming in 7.1 is that we're getting another small raid. Okay. Now, they haven't announced what that raid is going to be. What do you guys think it's going to be?
Well, part of me wants to geek out and go, it's the Upside Down Karazhan. Because that would be lorgasm-y. But...
Did you seriously just use the word lorgasm?
Lorgasm-y.
Clearly, you did not listen to a lot of Council of Six episodes.
No, it's just that now I'm having that geeky out moment that I've never used that phrase on the show, even though I've wanted to, and I finally got it.
Orgasm. There you go.
Thank you.
There you go. Now, on the other hand, though, in all likelihood, and of course, this is from somebody that hasn't played all the content on the PTR. I would assume that Gul'dan's got to go down pretty quick.
Well, we already know that Gul'dan is going to be the final boss in Suminar City. Okay. We already know that, and that's midway through the expansion. Right. They have not actually given all of the raid release schedule yet. They said on Thursday that they were going to release it in a blog post, and I was hoping and crossing my fingers as we were recording this that it was going to pop up, but no, they still haven't. So it'll probably be on Monday. Excuse me. But we are going to have. We know that it's coming, and they've already straight out said that Gul'dan was the final boss in Suminar City, and some of the quests that are going to be coming with 7.1 are starting to set up Suminar. And the relationship that we're going to have with Gul'dan after this whole entire to-do is all done. And we know that we're only getting one of the raids actually 3 weeks into launch, which is going to be the Nightmare Emerald. The Emerald Nightmare. Holy crap. Did I seriously just say that backwards?
Yes, you should.
High five. But yeah, no. So I kind of think that you're right in the sense that it's going to be the upside down Karazhan. But there is the other option. That because of the fact that they said it's going to be a short, small raid, I am starting to think that we're going to get a sort of world boss like we've seen in the past, like when they did Gruul's Lair. We're going to get something to that. And who better than Onyxia? And
remake Onyxia again?
Yep.
You're not the first person I've actually heard say that, which surprises me because I honestly think it will be upside down Karazhan. Well, one, my lore side has me begging that it is the other side of Kara. Something that may help push in that direction a little bit too. It would make sense for that side of Kara to be shorter because a lot of the bosses that you would flip would not flip to the other side. I don't know how familiar you are, like everybody out there is with Kara, because obviously we've never done a lore piece on Kara, but it would make sense that a lot of those bosses wouldn't carry over, so it could be much shorter and still be Karazhan. So,
yeah, actually, I hope that you're right, because I really don't want to be right, and I don't want to see Onyxia again.
I'd be fine with Oni again, but when I think short raid, I think 3 or 4 bosses. I feel like a single boss raid would be less than it would only whet our palate at this point. Like back in the day, yes, they worked, but the ferocious raiders that we have playing the game now would just burn through that and be like, okay. Now they're left picking a bone, going, "What's what else do you have for me here?" So
what's next?
Yeah, okay.
Who knows though?
Fair,
we'll see, I guess.
Fair enough. Okay, we got a little bit more info about Mythic Plus dungeons. Now, the Mythic Plus dungeons are going to be coming in after the raids, because of the fact that some of the best gear is going to drop in Mythic Plus dungeons. Now, I'm not sure how I agree with that whole idea of the best gear in the game is going to come from Mythic Plus dungeons, from the weekly chest, but I like the idea of the Mythic Plus dungeon. I'm going to turn this back. I'm going to flip this over to you guys before I actually go into my entire thing, because I don't want to change people's views. Yes, I know that, Poke, you love the idea. Nobu, what about you?
They say that it's going to be the best possible gear. Now, having experienced some Mythic Plus dungeons, I can tell you that at some point, though, that caps, they say Mythic Plus can scale infinitely. And truth, it can. But some of the suffixes and things that can be on your key can make the dungeon literally impossible. And I am rather certain that at some point it's all kind of going to come crumbling down, and we're going to get Titanforged, we're going to get Warforged, the items that drop in raids, they're going to be equal, because it'll be the same thing as the old Raider, 5-mans versus Raider, but instead flipped. And, raid guilds will stop, and then we'll suddenly have 5-man guilds. And at that point, what's the point? You know?
Hey, that's kind of where I was going. Poke, what about you, man?
Well, first of all, the game is constantly decreasing the amount of people it takes to get things.
Yeah.
Even though I am a supporter of being able to earn gear in all different types of ways, the game became famous because of raids. Like, honestly, back in vanilla WoW, when people were talking about WoW and how incredible it was and how amazing it was, they were talking about these giant 40-man groups going and killing these massive bosses. I love the idea that you can go into these Mythic Plus dungeons and do these really hard content and get something that's equivalent to something from a raid. But for them to say you're going to get better than raid stuff, I hate that word. I hate it. I hate that you get better than PvP stuff in raids. I hate that you get better than raid stuff in PvP. I hate that you get better than raid stuff in these Mythic Plus dungeons. Stop using that word. Stop it. Just give gear that's equivalent to how difficult what you're doing is, and forget about what's better from where, because you're only pushing people to be efficient beings and only do what nets them the most.
Yeah. Yeah, because what we'll see, and I'm going to use Knights of Deathbridge as kind of a basis for this. We will have a core group of people that will be pushing Mythic Plus dungeons, and we're going to get just ridiculous gear. And we're going to be sitting up here, and we have to wait for everybody else to kind of catch up while we're still always climbing and climbing and climbing to the point where our gear, which apparently we're only supposed to get a cap of Mythic Plus 10 right now, we will get to that, which will be better than what we're able to get out of Heroic Nighthold. Once we hit Mythic, sure. But you will see the spread between the top people in a raid team and the people that don't have as much time.
As long as your raid team is like that, because for those raid teams out there that are not like that,
yeah,
those people who are not running these dungeons every single day will be no longer in their raid group, which is a terrible thing.
Yes.
Because in all honesty, at the end of the day, your friendships and the relationships you're building in this game should mean something, but to a large portion of the ferocious raiders that are out there, they don't mean anything.
Yeah. It goes back to that analogy that I used back on that other show with that other gaming network, where I told you that you had to play Boom Beach for 20 hours before you were able to podcast again.
Yeah.
And now they're kind of forcing people into doing these again, and I'm not sure how well received it's going to be.
Yeah, and they're so good at using terminology. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do these dailies. You don't have to do this grind for Valor. Yeah. You're right. I don't have to, but if I don't, my character's useless. So,
well, it's not useless. It's just
it's not. But that's the way you
stunted.
feel.
Yeah, it just becomes stunted.
Like, you go into a raid and you're pulling a 10,000 DPS less than the other guy that's running a rogue, and you're like, I'm useless. I'm completely, utterly useless. I'm done. I don't even want to play this character right now. Then you switch characters only to realize, oh crap, all characters are useless unless I do this.
It is very true, and it
makes you feel that way. Not that that's the truth. Not that I have friends that I would take with me into a raid if they didn't pull any DPS, if they just stood there with their finger up their nose.
Why do you think I kept bringing you?
Exactly.
But
it's one of those situations. Like you feel like you're useless. You feel like you're not helping the team, and that it leaves such a nasty taste in your mouth.
Or you're watching somebody have to tank, or you're watching somebody tank Mythic Cormac solely, as you know that you're a solid tank. I've never seen that either.
No, never seen that before.
No.
No. But see, here, sometimes I think Blizzard isn't quite in tune with the player base, and then on other times I look and see the new emotes that are coming for Overwatch, and I see that Blizzard gave Diva an emote where she sits down in her mech, eats Doritos or Doritos, and drinks a Mountain Dew and plays video games. And I'm like, okay, so you are listening to the player base because you are clearly invoking what the community thinks of her. But it seems like they don't know that, or are discounting the fact that people who don't run, like when they say, oh, you don't have to. Okay, well, maybe you think I don't have to, but if I don't and the next guy does, and he has better items or he's 500 DPS more on the charts than the next guy, he's getting the raid slot. He's getting to hang out and play and have fun, whereas you get told, maybe you should go do some Mythic Pluses and get some gear.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but okay. See, I do believe that Blizzard is listening to the player base. When we did the whole, when I did the whole Corey Stockton freakout thing, and I told everybody to call Blizzard customer service and ask for half of their money back, because we only got half of an expansion. I kept saying that Blizzard wasn't listening, or that Blizzard was giving us everything we wanted, but then showing us why we shouldn't have had it in the first place, like the Garrison. Okay, we've been asking for player housing since before you were even cosplaying. We've always wanted player housing, so we finally get player housing.
No, let's be honest here.
They gave us a
player housing. That was a craptastic. Shut up about player housing is what that was.
Are you talking about the Sunstone Ranch, or are you talking about the Garrison?
I'm talking about the Garrison.
Okay, the Garrison. They gave us as a instead of wanting player housing like we were asking, we got a town that was very lucrative to the point where it didn't make sense. But they did listen. But it seems like they're a teenager. That when you tell them to clean their room, they take all of their stuff and throw it out. They go above and beyond the Call of Duty, and we've been wanting tougher dungeons all the way through. They liked the idea of the Mythic Dungeon that was introduced this expansion, and now they're like, we really like that idea. People have been asking for scaling, challenging dungeons. Well, let's give them that, and now they're going to make it too lucrative, and it's going to hurt the entire player base. That's my theory.
Tough to say. I mean, I do think because this is Blizzard's cycle, and for as much as I might love them and all most of the things they do, and I stress most, they're like the tide, and at some point you're like, oh, as sure as the tide, Blizzard will come in and they'll do this. But then the tide tends to recede, and then it comes back, but it's never quite as far inland as it was the last time. And then it goes back out, and it comes back in, and it reaches this equilibrium. And it's just like when Death Knights first came out, and now when Demon Hunters first come out, they're going to be overpowered as hell because they want everyone to be excited for the new thing. And then, after patch, after patch, after patch, they slowly fix, giant air quotes, I know you guys can't see, but, they fix, and they fix, and they patch, and suddenly I shouldn't say slowly things are more in line with each other. And I know that that's what's going to happen. I don't need to go to the charity dinner this year and ask, hey, what are we doing? Is this the no, like, you just know that this is how it's going to go down because it's happened with everything else that they've done.
Yeah. Okay. That's actually probably one of the best segues I've ever heard into the next thing about this whole receding. There's no way you knew where I was going to go next. None whatsoever. With the receding. Okay, ability pruning. Now, Poke, I know that you haven't had as much time in live as you would like. I heard somebody yesterday actually kind of go a little bit off on how easy it is to play a Demon Hunter, that it's almost 2 buttons. Then I started talking about a Shadow Priest that has the most amount of buttons with 6. And that's including 2 dots. Have they made this game so completely simplistic, or is it going to be very different once we get our artifact weapons and we get our 110? And we're just sitting here we're limping through to that next stage where everybody is going to have 6 or 7 buttons with their and cooldowns and stuff, to what we're very used to, very accustomed to. Or are they trying to make this game a lot more simplistic to kind of make it so that new players can come in and pick it up? Because Wrath of the Lich King, Cataclysm, rotations were like 16, 17 buttons long, and that was just on a Warlock. So is that what they're trying to do, or do you think that really I don't know, because some of these classes have become very, very, very simplistic.
Yeah, but then again, most of the classes have. Demon Hunters were designed as a class that only will ever go from 98 to beyond. So naturally, its ability progression is only going to be, slow to start, and then suddenly it takes off. I mean, if you create a brand new character of any other class, and then get 2 levels on that character, and you look at your hotbar, you might have 5 abilities total.
Yeah.
And that's basically what I know Demon Hunters have their eye lasers, they have their, they have all that stuff. But primarily, we know that most of those buttons are inconsequential or situational. They're not going to be your standard fare. And so, that's what the Demon Hunter is right now. Now, as I have played the BTR and the beta to that extent, I know for an absolute fact that once you start leveling your artifact weapon and you put in some relics and you get new abilities, those abilities add buttons to your hotbar. So there's loads of abilities that are coming that we're going to be able to slot and use. But I mean, even right now, Blood and Frost Death Knight, I still have 2 bars, full of abilities. I need to use combination hotkeys in order to use them all in a raid situation. So yeah, they are dumbing things down right now, but that's because they're squishing it for the start of the new expansion.
Awesome answer. Poke, what do you think?
Okay, so first of all, removing abilities is not necessarily a bad thing. I have 3 things that I want to say about ability printing. 1, things have gotten out of hand in the past.
Yes.
And 2, removing abilities that were there for fun and not necessarily for rotation purposes, I think was stupid, and we've talked about that in the past. There were abilities that, yes, maybe you only used them once every 6 months, but when you did, it was because you were having fun. When did the game stop being about fun and start being about a rotation?
Yeah.
Yes, Farsight had nothing to do with the game. What the hunter ability, I can't remember its name because I'm having a brain fart right now, but the hunter ability where you could tame a pet and take it over and walk around as the pet. Yes, no raid purpose, but when was the game all about raid? When did the game become nothing but let's get to raiding right now?
Well, I think that what they've done with getting rid of those sorts of abilities, they've actually put them onto toys, and it's all about the toys now to add in the fun.
So I can grab a toy, and as a monk, I can do the same thing that a hunter used to be able to do, because a hunter should be able to do that, because that makes sense that a hunter would do it.
Yeah. Actually, the one toy that I'm kind of disappointed that actually became a toy was the rainbow generator. Because do you remember the night that I pulled Garrosh with the rainbow generator and I was crying? I was laughing so hard at the ridiculousness of this.
Yes, that was fantastic.
The power of friendship.
Well, I'm a druid, and so I started dancing as I hit my rainbow generator, so it looked like I was doing a Care Bear stare, and I totally did the countdown. It was so epic. You know, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about all of this stuff yet.
And then the third thing about the class pruning, the only thing that really I disagreed with, because all like pruning is pruning. You have to remove abilities and add new ones and things like that. You have to keep it moving in a good direction. But 2 different articles that I've read almost make it sound like they tried to blame it on previous class progression being the creators not putting their full effort into it, and I completely disagree with that. I don't feel like there's ever been a time where a character was just like, this character's blah, who cares? Like, in fact,
Combat rogue.
I mean, but what would they have done with the combat rogue? Like,
got rid of it.
Oh, that's what it's saying. Eventually, they did. I mean, and back in the day, though, combat rogues, they were a very effective class. Jesus Christ, I remember in vanilla, I did not want to fight a combat rogue. They could bash your face in, like, stuns till the end of time. But anyway, it left a bad taste in my mouth for them to almost made them sound like they were talking like the previous class progression was lazy, and I did not agree with that at all. I feel like they've always worked really hard to keep the classes new and fresh, and that's one thing I enjoy about WoW.
I also agree, and I've looked into the artifact weapons and so on and so forth, and I like the idea that it's like right now we're playing this evolution of where WoW is going versus where it has been. Sure, we're going sort of back in time by taking on the Legion. And we've got iconic characters like Illidan coming back and so on and so forth. But this is the evolution that I think we should have seen a little bit more here in Draenor. Our rotations right this second aren't as complicated as they used to be, or they could be. We have this very basic talent tree, but now we're getting our artifact weapon talent tree in the whole 9 yards. So it's like it's putting stuff back, but evolving it and creating something that is going to stand for the next 5 years or 6 years. Or 7 years, the groundwork that they're putting in right now, that's what they're doing. And I know that I was a jaded, angry sort of a person, about a year ago. And now I'm totally flip-flopping like I was a Cheeto guy running for president. But on it, I really honestly believe that this is the way that it's coming. And this is the next. This is our new beginnings, and we're playing this new revolution of World of Warcraft. That, yay! It's not just a Diablo-ification of what we've been doing. Yeah. I like that. I like that. You guys have nothing to say. I left you two shocked or stunned, or I'm just so stupid that you don't want to answer.
I'm always very standoffish about saying whether or not I feel like something is going to be good, because it seems like the last how many ever times I said something is going to be a new beginning or something good, Blizzard has taken a giant shit on me for doing it. So I'm going to not go there this time.
Nobu, what do you got going on there, man?
For as much as I would kind of like to, I don't know, throw down in the belief ring at this point, I am more and more coming to realize that we can hypothesize and have all sorts of theories about what Blizzard thinks they're going to do or will do. But I mean, time and time again, for good or ill, Blizzard has shown that they're quite unpredictable.
Yeah.
And, so long as things are fun, at the end of the day, so long as things are still fun, I don't care how many buttons I'm pushing. So long as I'm with my friends, I'm having a good time, and bosses are dying, I really won't care in the end.
Yeah, that's actually how I summed up that entire conversation with that one guild member. About that was the fact that it doesn't really matter how many buttons somebody has to press versus what you have to press or anything like that. It's about killing bosses. It's about having fun, and it's about doing what we do best and being as good as you possibly can be. And that's it. Some classes, you need to design classes so that some of them are easier to play than other classes.
There are literally MMOs out there who don't really balance their classes. They just rate them on how difficult they are to play.
Yeah, League of Legends is classic for doing this.
Terra, literally when you're creating a character on Terra, it tells you how hard that character is to play versus the other ones, and what level of damage it can do and things like that. And yes, it needs to be balanced to some extent, but it's good that they're trying to make it to where you're looking for certain classes now. You're not just saying I want a ranged DPS or we want a melee DPS. We're looking for a hunter. We're looking for a mage. In vanilla, that's what it was. You took one of every class, or you were probably not going to succeed. And I love the fact that it's going back to that. You're looking for specific classes and specific people, not just a body that's warm and can shoot whatever, flavor of projectile comes out of them. It's ridiculous. So that's what it was. That's
summed up every porno ever made.
What color projectile do we have this week? That's where I'm at on this, and I love the fact that it's going away from that.
Oh wow, buddy! I know you didn't mean it that way, but that was priceless. You're gonna watch that. You're gonna go,
whatever you want. We're having lorgasms.
I know.
We are getting flavored projectiles. This is a party this week.
That's right. That is right. That's why we're gonna have to do one of these shows where we're drinking too. Anyways.
Oh dear Lord.
Oh, I know. We'll do a late night nightly news. So
from the depths of Hellfire Citadel, the Drunken Raider Company.
Oh, that's a bad idea. Such a bad idea.
Yeah, they do drunken comedy on Comedy Central, or drunken history on Comedy Central. So.
Yeah.
Drunken lore.
Ooh. Ooh. Wow. I don't want to see that.
I think Chris Metzen would probably punch me in the face if I did that. Again.
So when we're not on air, you got to tell that story about meeting Chris Metzen. That was
he's my
awesome.
friend. I don't.
That was absolutely awesome.
That, yeah.
Yeah. Not on air. I don't want you to do that because but you got to tell Poke that story. Anyways, guys, we've hit that magical hour and 20-minute mark, and it's starting to get ridiculously hot in my office right now. So, before we
sorry, we weren't in the porno thing anymore?
No, we weren't. We were done with the porno. We can go back to that at a later date. Poke, why don't you go ahead and tell people how they can get in touch with us?
First, I want to say I don't think they'll let us post that on YouTube, so we're going to have to find a different place to post that video.
You porn?
Secondly...
Well,
I almost facepalmed, but I didn't.
That's my shtick.
Yeah, you know what? You're old. You've retired. I get to steal your shticks.
Oh my god!
Internet is for porn.
He's almost. He's almost about to. He's almost about to facepalm. It's coming.
Okay.
It's coming.
So, if you want to contact us as a whole on Twitter, Derek still has not fixed the typo, but it is KOTGaming1. Our email is knightsofdeathbridgegaming@gmail.com, facebook.com/knightsofdeathbridge. And if you want to get in touch with me personally on Twitter, it's @PokeSoul.
You can get in touch with me at Derek_Scott. And Nobu, if you want people to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
They can get in touch with me by emailing bigevilreview@gmail.com.
Awesome. And then, Poke, do you got anything else you want to add there?
Just, make sure if there's anything you guys want to push forward to us, because I don't want to say necessarily chat about, because we are up for chatting. But if you don't want to chat and you just want to say something, please send those through too. I actually was approached the end of last week, and somebody was like, "You always say if people want to chat or if they want to say something to contact you, but there are like little things that I just want to be like blah, and I don't feel like I want to be that professional about it." And I was like, "Well, then just jump on Twitter or on YouTube, and even if it's 3 words, please hit us with it. Like, we want to know."
Yes, get in touch with us. Do whatever you possibly want to. We're cool and we're comfortable like that. We're not like other shows or anything like that.
It's so
refuse
funny
to talk to their fans because we want to.
Yes, it's so funny. And I have people approach me in everyday life, and they're like, "Well, I wanted to say blah blah blah." I'm like, "Then why didn't you say it?"
Yeah,
like. We're not going to leap through our screen and strangle you. Like, just even if you think we're completely wrong or that Derek's ugly, like I tell him that all the time. It's fine.
It's true. It's true. I've got a face for radio, and ironically, YouTube still lets me post stuff up.
Oh, Lord, no why.
I know, right?
No.
Jesus. Anyways, so Nobu, thank you so very much for coming on. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I hope to have you on again. Are you willing to come back?
I'm gonna have to check. Yes, of course. It's been a blast, and I look forward to it.
I want you to know that Poke is going to be doing something that hasn't been done in a very long time. And I'm watching his eyes. He knows I'm about to bring it up. Poke is going to be doing a lore show right here on Knights of Deathbridge Gaming. And he's going to be doing lore in 5 minutes. So he's going to actually
I might do drunken lore in 5 minutes.
It's his spin on the lore, and he's going to try to do it in about 5 minutes. I imagine that he has been trying to you remember the old Micro Machines guy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, learn how to talk that incredibly.
Well, that's where it started. But I very quickly realized that's not going to happen.
Yeah. So
now I'm finding ways to combine things. So like Sargeras, I did a pre-thing, and I got it in 7.
Ooh.
I gotta shave 2 minutes off of it. So
wow.
I'm gonna do this though. I'm gonna do this. He's
All
gonna
right.
be the first one, and yep. I'm gonna try to launch him with the expansion launch.
Okay.
And I'll get it in 5. I'll do this.
All right. So we had a great little mishap. I was doing the overlay for it, and I totally forgot to do lore in, and it was just 5-minute poking. And I was just like, wow, this is a horrible name. Yes, got him to the face palm. It's not a good week unless I make Poke face palm me. Alrighty, guys. Well. Thank you once again, Nobu, for joining us. This has been Warcraft Nightly News. I'm Derek Scott.
And I'm Poke.
And Nobu, you might as well throw yourself in here.
And I'm Nobunaga.
Wow. Okay, so...
Get on my level, boys.
Wow. Remember, kids, it's all fun and games until the old guy thinks that he can still hang with the new ones. And then you're ready for Warcraft Nightly News. You guys have yourself a wonderful week.